Okay, so in the last video I promised that we would get into some of the more nitty-gritty of JavaScript and see what it's capable of. As I mentioned, well, there's heaps of tutorials. This is one of them, and got nothing to do with this web page, but it's just one way of this. As I showed at the beginning of these ones, we've got the Mozilla. That's a great resource. I really like this one. It's got but yeah, there's a lot at the beginning to get your head around. But yeah, I'm going to explain some of the basics, okay, to get us going, because you can see there's like heaps and heaps of stuff here, all the versions and different things about objects and functions and classes and um, things we can do. So let's go back to our web page. So I mentioned that we can play around. This is really good, this console that we've come in with the in our development tools. This console is really good to play around with JavaScript, okay, and try things. So we're gonna hang around here for a while just to learn some of the things we can do. Okay, so when we have these concepts and we know what things we can do, it's going to be easier to advance with our game development. Okay, so one of the first things is thing about variables. So if you studied maths at school, I guess, well, you've got we practice things like this. You've got x is equals to 1, and this is actually valid JavaScript as well. X is equal to 1. If we say y is equal to 2, then we can say x plus y is 3. To not too much surprise, but as you can see, this is actually JavaScript where we're doing simple statements, and we've defined x as a variable. So we're giving the variable x the value of 1 and the variable y the value of 2. And then we can do simple like math operations on those variables. A better way to define variables in JavaScript is to give a bit more information about their type. Okay, so we could use their we can define them like this. We could put a var in front of it and say var variable for variable x is equal to 1. Okay, but a better way is to explain a bit better, is to define if this variable is to be a constant value. That means we give it a value and that value shouldn't change ever, or we can define a variable and say no, this can be changed, so we can give it x the value of 1, but then later on we can give it the value of 5 or whatever. So we can try that. So if it's going to be constant, we use this. We can use this keyword, which is const. Const x equals 1. Okay. So now if I say if I say x, now I want x to equal 2, it gives us an error. If we want it to be able to change, another keyword is let. So we'll say let y equal 2. Okay, but since we've used let instead of const, we can actually change the value of y. So we can say y, now I want y to equal 4. And there's no problem. It doesn't give us an error. So that's a way if we want something to be not changed, and it's also sometimes it's useful for the language to complain when that isn't being fulfilled. Okay, so there's a basic way of defining variables. What kind of things can we assign to a variable? Here we're using numbers, okay, and we can actually inspect and say to know what kind of data is in the variable using the keyword type of. Say type of x is a number. Type of y is also a number. But we can assign other kinds of things, like if we want to assign, we can assign text or a word or a sentence even to a variable. That's called a string. Okay, and usually in basically all programming languages that I know of, they call it a string. Okay, so we'd have, so now we want, well, we've said x is a const, so we're going to have problems with x. So we'll just say y equals hello. Y is hello. Good. Now we can say type of y is a string. Okay, before it said it was number, as we can see above. Type of y was a number. We've changed the assignment, so now it's a string. What other types do we have? We've got strings and we've got also booleans. What is a boolean? Well, a boolean is something we can assign either true or false to. So we'd write in JavaScript, we write the true with and the false with all in lowercase. Y is true. Now we can say type of y is boolean. So that's a special type. It only has those two values, true or false. Another type would be an object or a list. Another so in a list, if we want a list of numbers, say in JavaScript, that's called an array. So how would we define an array? We'd say we open these, the simplest way I guess is to use those kind of square brackets. So we can make y a list of numbers, and the first number would be 1, the second 2, and 3. Okay? Now, if we write type of y, it changes again. But surprisingly, it says it's an object. It's not. It doesn't say array, because it's one of the things JavaScript, like an array is actually an object. And you can have different types of objects. A basic object is a way of saying we could have, for example, an object which is a person. Okay, so let's say const person equals. So this case, for an object, we would open a curly brackets, and an object has a key and a value. So a person would have a name, and then we would put, this would be the key, and we would assign and then we put define what the name is, the value of the name. Okay, name, and let's give him a surname. Okay, and then we close our curly brackets. There we go, we've got an object now. This person is a bit more complex, isn't it? We're assigning something that's got two properties, and we can call him name and surname. And what can we do with an object? We could say person, and if we want to know his name, we'd put a dot and then the key that we're interested in, name. And we know that now that name of that person that we've defined is Jack. So we could do the same, person dot surname is Smith. Okay, and we can put in person on its own, and it'll give us the whole, to tell us what the whole object is. Now we can say also type of person. What's the type of the variable person? It's an object. Okay, so they're the basic types of variables we can use. There are a lot more, but these are the ones that you would use more commonly, I guess, because they are in everything. Okay, so this is all the thing about variables. There's a lot more to learn about variables, but these are the basic. This is the basic tool, the basic ideas we need to know of the different types. Best thing to do is to play around, just as I was doing now. Practice this, okay? The way, as I said right at the beginning, the way to learn to program is to play around and actually do stuff. So here you've got, let's define new variable. Okay, we'll try out the thing about the const. What happens if I const a is whatever a string now? Let's say the string is hello. Okay, and then yeah, whatever I want to say, our hello world doesn't work, and you can try using var if you want with let. Just give it all a go. Try defining an object, play around with also arrays. Okay, and we'll see some more interesting stuff in the next video. We'll learn about functions. Okay, functions are blocks of code and how to define them and how they work, and we'll then be using them in our game.